Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. Episode 13. We are so excited to have you all listening today. I am joined once again by my wonderful co-host, Roger, Nacc. Nacc recently hit an 88 on an 18 course today, so we're going to refer to him as Bryce DeChambeau for the rest of the episode. But all jokes aside, well done. Well done. So, yeah, we're very excited today, guys. This is the first episode in a series where we're going to be basically going over every single division in the NFL from fantasy football perspective. And what's so special about that, apart from the fact that like we're going through each division in and of itself, we're getting guests on each episode. So today we're joined with three individuals right now who are going to talk about teams within the AFC East. So we're very very excited.
Woo!
Yeah, super pumped. The first of
Let's
eight,
go.
episode 13, lucky number 13. Let's get the ball rolling. We're not going to waste any time. We're not going to waste any time at all. We're going to jump into our first guest, Mr. Nick Boras, hailing from Ville Saint Laurent, Montreal, the resident New England Patriots super fan. While he's not being a super fan for the Niners and probably the Bucks, it all depends on what time of the year it is and who's playing for that team. But we'll leave the pleasantries aside, and we're going to jump right into a burning question that we have surrounding a very interesting position, a very interesting player, Ramondre Stevenson. Currently, Nick, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you having taken the time out of your very busy schedule and jumping on with us. We really, really appreciate it. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about Ramondre Stevenson, whose current ADP right now is running back 20. He missed the last four games of the most recent season with a high ankle sprain, but he got paid in the offseason regardless. He's got to sign a contract for 4 years, $36 million contract. However, now he has Antonio Gibson in the backfield with him. So, kind of want to get your take, how you're feeling as a New England Patriots super fan about his ranking, his ADP. Last year he finished as running back 27. So, do you think he's going to outperform that ranking this year? Are you buying his ADP at RB 20?
All right. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. Um, for Ramondre Stevenson, obviously very biased because I am a Patriots fan. However, I think at the price right now, Ramondre Stevenson is a bargain. Last year we were drafting him like RB. I think he was going off the board around RB 13 as an RB 2 with RB 1 upside. This year you could probably get him as an RB 2, RB 3, and I still think he has that RB 1 upside. They have not drafted any running backs. They signed Gibson, but 3 years, I think 11.25 million, not super big investment. But the thing I like a lot about Stevenson this year is QB situation much better. An offensive coordinator coming from the Browns, uh, Alex Van Pelt. I think he was also like I think at one point an RB coach. At some point, he was also QB's coach. Yeah, so he's been around. He's someone that really knows how to like he has enough experience that he's been around with RB coach, QB coach. Now he's the offensive coordinator. He was also offensive coordinator before. So what I like about that is that from the Browns, I mean, Nick Chubb was the guy, right? And Kareem Hunt wasn't so bad also as his sidekick. So
Yeah.
I think at RB 23, if the QB situation sort of figures itself out, I mean, uh, Brissett still could have a decent enough floor as a QB to at least bring them to the red zone often enough. And I think with even if it's Drake May or it's Brissett, they're going to be run heavy. And if Stevenson is the Chubb, I'm buying at the price RB 23. Like I don't know what you guys think.
I like that pun.
Mac,
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think it was he's rated the 20th right now. I know you mentioned Chubb and Hunt. I don't think Ramondre and Gibson fall into the Chubb and Hunt category personally. But I mean that being said, RB 20 right now, like you have him. The people right after him are like Najee, Zamir White, which like I may take a flyer more on Zamir White just because he's going to command the backfield. But then you have people like Swift and like Warren, Jonathan Brooks, Zach Moss. So the only other person that I may decide to take over him would be like a James Conner, who's at like 27. But again, he's getting older. I do agree that definitely the QB position is definitely right now seems a lot better. You don't know Drake May might come in and start halfway through the year. You don't know how You don't know how they're playing those cards as of yet. So for sure, the offense should look better. But I'm just until I see it, I don't know if I'm buying too heavy on it. I think low end RB2, kind of RB3 also. I don't want to throw all my eggs in a basket for Ramondre. Like I'm not. He doesn't scream
Connect.
off the page for me at the moment.
Just
And
Roger, what do you think?
it's interesting. He was RB8 in 2022 with not that much of a better supporting cast. That was a Mac Jones year. Like I really like Ramondre, and when it comes iffy like these situations, I personally always go back to the talent, and the guy's really talented. That 2022 year, he had, I believe, 200 carries, 1,000 yards, 5 yards per carry, 69 catches, and I'm not really afraid of the Gibson piece because New England always has a pass catching running back, or they've always had a pass catching running back to complement more of the first and second down running back. And I love Nick's point about Alex Van Pelt, big running infrastructure that they've always had with the Browns. I know the Patriots made some improvements on the offensive line. That was one of the big points of contentions previously. So I think that's an easy bargain. The talent is there. The talent is there from his perspective. I agree to from a supporting cast standpoint, it might be I could see the reservations on that point, but I really like him at that bargain price.
Nick?
yeah, just quick on just I know you're saying you don't see Stevenson on the same. Nacc was talking about on the same page as Chubb, but in 2022, uh, Chubb was in PPR. I think was RB6. Stevenson was RB7, right? So I still think the talent's there with Stevenson. Last year was injuries plus just a really horrible situation.
It was a throwaway year.
So
Yeah, I'm
it's
not
I
debating
think
Yeah,
the
yeah.
if
talent for
you're
sure, but we're talking
punting
a year.
if you're punting running
You
back, I
know,
think that's someone that you could get late that has top 10 RB potential. If you get a Drake May that's one of those rookies that come in guns blazing, he has sneaky rushy upside. Drake May too. So I think the team could get better, and if he gets the catches, some catches, because Gibson's for sure going to command some, but if he gets some catches there, I think he could put up some big points, especially in the red zone. Rookie QB. Usually, it's nice to just punch it in. Uh, yes,
Yeah, Roger, I'm gonna get to it in a second. I agree, and I'm a little higher than maybe the ADP ranking is right now. I think RB20 is a bargain at that spot, because you think about the offense, right? You would assume it would act a little bit more efficiently than it did last year, because Jacoby Brissett's been around for a while. He can definitely command and manage an offense pretty well. The wide receiver room is it's stacked. Like there are players on there. Stacked is a strong
well,
word, but
stacked. Yeah,
there's
I
depth.
wouldn't go stacked.
There's depth for sure. So I think it will allow like Mirage to see like less stack boxes. And RB20 is a bargain. Like if you're gonna get him and he puts in like weekly RB2 numbers and the offset RB1 number, I think it's a really good spot. Raj?
Yeah, like he is at that ADP. I think it's we're using the Fantasy Pros composite rankings. Aaron Jones is above him. I'm a big fan of Aaron Jones, so that maybe not over him, but definitely over Montgomery. I like him over Kenneth Walker. Uh,
Wow,
yeah, well, Kenneth Walker doesn't catch many passes. Like, and I'm a big Kenneth Walker fan. Like, he doesn't catch any passes. So I think there's like 2 to 3 players
and
that
Montgomery too.
Montgomery's a 2 down back. Like Montgomery's not playing third down, and if they're down, if the lines are down, Montgomery's not playing at all.
Plus,
Like,
Gibbs is gonna have
forget it.
such
He's
a
not
bigger
playing.
role this year
Chubb
too.
was never a three down back. If we're going back into an offense, like
But Ramondre had
they
69
they
catches in
shared
2022. Like
for sure. But
Ramondre has
there's a new offensive coordinator there, right? Like
it's the same.
I'm
It's the
not
same
discounting
offensive
the
coordinator he's
guy,
worked
right?
with. Yeah. Like, and there's proof of concept that Ramondre has caught a lot of balls. So
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a new offensive coordinator there, right? Like there's a new guy there, and I'm saying we were comparing it to Chubb and Hunt, and how that kind of how that figured in. But Chubb was never that three down guy either, right? So your point to saying Montgomery's a two down back, I think Stevenson is going to maybe play more into that as well if the offense goes like it was with the Browns. That's just my point.
on the con side, I mean, I still don't think it's going to be in the top 2/3 of the scoring, right? Patriots. So as much as he might get them to punch them in, there just might not be that many touchdowns out there. But
Opportunities, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. You might
though,
not get to the red zone as much.
as long as the price
Right.
stays what it is, for me, I love it. If he starts rising too much with some Drake May hype, then I agree with you, Nacc. But I think right now it's great value for a starting running back
Yeah,
on a
I
team
don't
that
see many people
will run,
under.
right?
I don't see many people under him.
Yeah, because he was drafted. Well, I won't say he was overdrafted, but he was drafted quite high last year, and obviously didn't live up to the hype. So this year, I think a lot more people are going to be fading him. So you could definitely get him as a value pick, because he won't even necessarily go as RB20. He might go after that, right? Because people are going to be a little more
Such a write off.
tepid and scared,
Such
and
a write off last year with the offensive
yeah, the
coordinator
whole offense was a
situation.
write
He
off.
was
Yeah,
injured, bad QB
Yeah,
play.
everyone
yeah,
drafted
yeah.
him high because of 2022.
Yeah, exactly. So he can be a great value pick this year
Yeah.
too. And if you're looking at the zero RB strategy, which I know we've spoken about quite a bit on the pod, about people might be fading the running back position if you're not going to get one of the top end guys. Ramondre coming back at RB20 or even like later than that would be great value. Great value.
And two,
Especially for us, how we prioritize two QBs. Yeah, Nick, I think you're going to jump on that right now.
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say with two QBs, if I like getting my second quarterback before potentially my second running back, or if some values come that you don't get any running backs, a bit like Nacc last year. Well, if you end up getting a bit later Ramondre Stevenson and a James Conner, hey, you're stacked at your quarterbacks and your receivers. You're, at least for me, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to agree. Hard to disagree. Well, listen, Nick, thank you very much for coming on. I don't know if you have anything else to add before we let you go.
No, go Patriots. I like the draft. They had got some O lines. Polk, which was the number 2 to Romo Dunze. I think we spoke a bit yesterday, Fab. So I think we're gonna see
Yeah.
hopefully a different Patriots offense. Last year I did not watch many games. It was not pretty with Mac Jones. So I'm hoping at least for a bounce back here and beat at least. You're gonna talk to some Jets and some Dolphins and Bills fans. I hope at least we're not at the bottom. I hope at least we finish at least third instead of last, which most people are predicting the
Wow.
Patriots. So.
Yeah, I think you guys are going to go 0-6 in your division, but that's just me.
I
We'll
don't know
save it
about
for
0
another
and
time.
6. They usually
Is,
beat the Dolphins.
is Tom Brady coming back?
To Vegas.
Nick, thanks so much for jumping on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Okay.
Thanks,
having me, guys.
Burris.
You guys are doing great.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
So that was Nick Burris talking about the New England Patriots. So clearly he's pretty high on Ramondre Stevenson, and I can't really disagree. Now we're gonna jump over to the New York Jets, the second team in New York. We're gonna bring on Mr. Spiro Vavudis, who is the resident New York Jets aficionado. Very happy to have you on right now, Spiro. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your super busy schedule. We're going to talk to you real quick about Brees Hall. Very interesting running back as well. Probably more than Ramondre Stevenson, I would think, especially how he's finished the year strongly last year, even though he got off to a bit of a slow start. But the Jets in general last year, I think we can all agree their season was a wash. But you know, the assumption that Rodgers is going to be healthy. They've added some wide receiver weapons in Mike Williams. Will that open up more space for Brees Hall? And do you think he'll be able to live up to his RB2 ADP? Currently, he's being drafted right after CMC as a second running back. Last year, he finished RB6. So I kind of want to get your take on that, how you feel about Brees Hall. So want to get how you feel in that regard.
Before I start, I want to give a big shout out to the 2021 second overall pick, Zach Wilson. He got engaged yesterday in Italy, and I find it really amazing that someone finds some use for him because he was absolutely useless to the Jets for 3 years, and the pain he caused me and many Jets fans around the world was not it was unswallowable. Especially after all the
Wow,
hope that we had last year with
what a
Aaron Rodgers
word!
coming
Is
in.
that a word?
I just
I
made
don't
it a
know.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's made up. Yes,
This is a podcast first, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in.
So yeah,
unswallowable.
Brees Hall. Uh, I have no doubt that everyone around and everyone is really high on Brees Hall. If you dig a little deep into what Brees Hall is coming into, the situations, getting into the pros and the cons, he has the opportunity to really explode this year. And last year, yeah, he did have some good yardage and some good numbers. The quarterback situation wasn't that great. Actually, it was terrible, like we just alluded to. But he was coming off an ACL tear. right? And it takes time to come back from an ACL tear. So yeah, he got his first full season in, and I think this will be his first real season to shine. What has he got going for him? Well, Aaron Rodgers, yes, he's still 40 years old, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. A lot better than Zach Wilson. Again, I'm sorry for ripping him so many times, but better than Zach Wilson and better than Trevor Simeon. He's also got a much better offensive line. Maybe not the best offensive line in the league, but anything could have been better than that. I mean, smoke, like it was a horrible offensive line last year. It was just like a makeshift offensive line. So I think that's great, and he's got great wide receivers that they're going to be able to drag defenders off to. Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, he was great in San Diego. Let's be serious. Tyler Conklin, nice tight end, can really draw defenders off other offensive players. And a little, I don't know if you guys touched on this at all in on your draft analysis, but they drafted a fourth in the fourth round. They drafted a running back, Braylon Allen. Okay,
Oh man,
six.
we did touch on him.
Yeah, we did. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
He's a
So
beast.
he's 6'1", 240 pounds. Okay, the guy is a bruiser. He's gonna take. I mean, this could be a pro and a con. Fine. He's gonna take a lot of short yardage, the short yardage plays. Maybe steal some of that goal line thing, but it's gonna take a lot of bruising off Brees Hall, right? Brees Hall's gonna be able to conserve a lot more of his energy for those, those super like those big plays, right?
Those big runs that he has. Yeah.
Those big runs. So I think that'll help, and it'll hopefully keep him healthy throughout the year. So look, RB2 is a little. It is high. I think CMC is going to regress a bit. I do think Bijan for Atlanta is going to be the running back this year. I think an ADP of 2 to 3 is adequate for now. But the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit for him.
Raj?
Spiro, I want to touch on Braylon Allen quickly. I know, Spiro, you're a great historian of football. Doesn't he? And I was saying it when we did our draft analysis. Doesn't he remind you of Eddie George when you see him?
Yeah, so he's got. Remember, Eddie George used to have those like big shoulder pads.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
he had big everything. He had a
Yeah.
like a big head, like a big neck.
What
big
else? What else?
mouthpiece.
What else, Spiro?
The big
Whoa,
brat.
whoa, 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 whoa,
Let's
whoa,
not go. This is a child friendly.
We can't do explicit anymore. No, no.
But jokes
No.
aside, he did have like these really big shoulder pads.
If we
Yeah.
talk
And
in
I
other
was watching
languages,
some
we can.
plays. I
He
was
had a big
watching
jock
some,
strap. He had a big jock strap. So who said that?
well, I mean, but if you look at some of those replays from Wisconsin, right? He just looks big,
Yeah, he's
right?
massive, man.
And
Big
like
boy.
either way, you got a better offensive line. You got Aaron Rodgers who will be able to, you know, uh, make the defense look the other way. And let's say you line up with Brees and Braylon, like, oh boy, that's like what did they used to call Lindell White and the Reggie Bush,
Thunder Lightning?
Thunder
and
lightning.
Thunder,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know. I think I think there's really nice opportunity here. The division is not as I think it's ripe for the picking. The Patriots, unfortunately, are going to be garbage. I think Miami is a big wild card, and the Bills. Well, Nacc, you'll talk a bit about the Bills a little later on. There, I'm not as high on them as most people might be.
So I think the Brees Hall thing, it's actually a really good point about how there's going to be running backs to spell Hall. I think you've nailed everything. He's an amazing running back. He has amazing talent. Rodgers likes throwing the running backs. He's always thrown the running backs, whether it's obviously Aaron Jones or previous running backs in that situation. Um, there's just not enough evidence that he's a true RB1. Obviously, like RB number one. Obviously, he had the really good rookie season, but that was cut short. And then last year, I think a lot of people picked him high, but again, coming out of the ACL, the talent wasn't around him. I think you could say he's pegged for a monster season, but I'd be just a little bit weary of picking him as, in some cases, he's going RB1 right now. But everything around him is looking good. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams. He's going to face less. He was actually middle of the pack in terms of stack boxes. I think he was 20th overall in terms of 8-man fronts. So
Yeah, they had to pass a lot, right?
they had to pass a lot, of course. So, he didn't fare amazingly well in the fact that he didn't have a lot of stack boxes. But I like Hall a lot. I think it's just how is the offensive line going to fare, and they have to make sure Aaron Rodgers is healthy because all of this rides around Aaron Rodgers, and the way the chemistry is with Nathaniel Hackett. If Rodgers is down, like there's no chance. Like all of this falls to the, I was gonna say the a bad word, but it all falls to crap. So
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. But it's we touched on it before. He finished RB6 in a really terrible offense last year, right? They revamped the offensive line, like Spiro alluded to, um, and now if Rodgers is back healthy, if the receivers everything stays healthy, like he's my RB1 if everything goes to plan. I think, like
over
Spiro said,
McCaffrey,
yep, I think
Wow.
McCaffrey regresses, man. There's no way he's getting that many touches without getting hurt again or something like that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of fluff going on in San Fran right now. A lot of talking, a lot of this, a lot of distractions. I don't know. I think McCaffrey's going to regress. I think Bijan or Hall could take the reins this year. I fully believe it. McCaffrey's another year older. There's always a young buck. Like it's very rare that these guys always repeat year after year. Uh, I don't know, man. If everything goes right, which it never does for the Jets, but if everything does go right
Don't
and the
remind
stars
me.
do align, yeah, exactly. But if the stars do align, that offense is, man. It's and like you said, there's a wild card in that AFC East right now, minus the Patriots, because I don't think the Patriots are going to make noise. They're not ready yet. But even the Bills, like they could take a step back. Miami also too. Like we don't know. Uh, I don't know, man. It's that division is wide open, and I think Brees Hall could be a very, very major component of that.
Spiro, I'm gonna get to it in a second, but your points are all bang on. Um, the whole CMC regressing thing, Knack, I don't disagree, but I still think that that difference is still going to be put him as a RB1 over Brees Hall. I still think Brees Hall is firmly RB2. If you want to take, if you want to take, what's his name out of Atlanta? I can't forget his name right now.
Bijan.
John.
If you want
Dijon,
to take Bijan at the spot, I don't have an issue with it. But like Raj, you mentioned it, he's primed for a monster season. I think he's primed for a monster season. I really, really do. And I think that the fact that they really upgraded the offensive line, I think that there are more weapons. He's going to see less stacked boxes, even though he didn't see that many to begin with. And I think he has a real shot to shine, in my opinion. So he's firmly entrenched in my RB2. And yeah, Knack, like a RB1, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished the year in RB1 at all. Spiro?
Yeah, I just want to touch on two things. Aaron Rodgers, his arm isn't as strong as it used to be, and I don't think he'll go deep as much as he did when he was a Packer. That gives a lot of opportunity for check down throws, and Brees's opportunity to make a lot out of a little. And I mean, the Jets' defense is fantastic. Nacc, you alluded to their offense has a lot of pieces. No, their defense has a ton of pieces. What does that mean? I think that they'll be able to spend less time playing defense, get the offense on more often,
Yep.
which means Brees will be on the field more often. So I think, like, yeah, not only are the pieces all together line up well for the offensive pieces line up well for Brees, I think the overall situation lines up really well for Brees. And I'm telling you, for a fan base that is starving for something, just
uh,
something, it's just prime. It's a salivating feeling. Anyway,
The last time they made the playoffs was Mark Sanchez their quarterback,
yeah,
12
yes,
years.
sir.
yeah, I
Been
think
12
so. Yeah,
years, right?
right?
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I guess you guys are due, I suppose. Um, you know, but are you Spiro? Is he your RB1 or is it still CMC?
Let's say you put a gun to
Take
my
off your
head.
take off your Jets hat for a second. Take
Right.
off your Jets hat for a second.
So my RB1, if you put a gun to my head, is Bijan. I agree 100% with Nacc that
Wow.
CMC is regressing. I still think he's going to be fantastic, but you just can't ride him. I mean, that guy's got a lot of miles, and if you want to win the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
you got to
and
have him.
and and,
They're
and
they're
when I
gonna
mean when I mean regressing, like I don't mean he's gonna
Right.
finish
I know what
10th,
you mean.
right? Like he's not gonna
No, no,
finish
no, no.
10th,
they're gonna
but
give him
he's
less carries.
He's gonna finish
I
RB4
I
instead of
think, yeah,
RB1.
man, he had a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
lot of work last year, and plus they
Yeah.
went all the way to the Super Bowl, and he was like the main component of that offense. Like at one point, you want to keep your guys healthy, and I
No,
don't
those
know.
are all very good points. Those are all
I
Yeah,
very good
think,
points.
yeah,
yeah.
I don't
I
think he
just want
gets.
to say one last thing. I think on the Bijan part, right? I don't think their team's very good. Not now. There might be a lot of room for like garbage time points for him.
You don't think the Falcons are very good?
I don't think they're very good. I don't think they're very good. No.
They also re-signed CMC, right, for like
Yeah, 19
three
million
more
a year.
years. Like I think they want to probably keep him healthy for that contract.
Well, they
And
have two
instead of,
backs also. Like they didn't
yeah,
Jerome
for sure.
Mason and Elijah Mitchell.
Elijah
Mitchell they
Mitchell.
barely
Yeah,
used.
man. I think I think they're going to be used a little bit more this year. I don't think they're going to go, you know, full pin on CMC, and I think the
Wow.
investment probably shows that. Like he's going to get his touches. Don't get me wrong. Like he's going to play, but I
Just
just
turned into a fading CMC conversation. I love it. Roger, go ahead.
can't get
Spiro, do you think Brees Hall has a chance to be better than Curtis Martin?
wow.
So
Great
Curtis
question.
Martin had for the who did he have as a quarterback? He had Chad Pennington, a very, very, very old Vinny Testaverde, which is the reason why I'm a Jets fan, by the way. That's a side note. And who was the other one? Um, anyways, that was the majority of his career. That's the quarterbacks he had. He has Aaron Rodgers now. Could he be better? Well, he's got to be better this year, next year. The team's better. The team's better. Gary Wilson's better than Wayne Corbett.
More
Gary
better.
Wilson's better than I'm sorry, he's better than Lavernius Coles.
Keyshawn Johnson.
Bah, Keyshawn Johnson. Please. There's a
Is he
reason why
on?
there's a reason why he sits across from Skip
I was
Bayless
gonna
and he's not
say,
on
yeah.
ESPN anymore. Okay.
I never liked Keyshawn Johnson. But on that note, Spiro, thank you
I
very
like
much for your
Keyshawn, yeah.
time. We
I
really
like Keyshawn.
appreciate you jumping on over here and being a guest and talking about the New York Jets,
Oh, I
Jets.
can go on forever. Sorry, guys. I could talk.
No, but we don't want to listen to you forever. But thanks all the same. Really, really enjoyed you coming on and give a little nugget. Great question, Raj, there with Curtis Martin. I remember Curtis Martin. He was a great call back there. So thank you very much for your time. We're gonna be jumping right on to the next team.
Good night, guys.
Thank you,
Bye,
Spiro.
Spiro.
Sparrow.
We're going to be jumping right into the next team in the AFC East. You got to love Ace Ventura's favorite team right now. You got to love the Miami Dolphins. So we're going to bring on the biggest Miami Dolphins fan that I've ever known in my life, Guido DeStefano. Guido? There he
Hello, hello.
is. There he is, sporting perfect Miami Dolphins attire. Guido, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time and sticking around with us. We're gonna probably talk about a bit of a hot topic right now. Everyone always speaks about the quarterback situation. Everyone always speaks about what type of karate classes quarterbacks are taking. So obviously this question is really centered around Tua Tagovailoa. So he's currently being drafted right now as QB 13. As his ADP. So right after Goff and right before Justin Herbert, as per ESPN PPR. But there has been some additions in the offseason, right? They added Odell Beckham Jr., they added Jonnu Smith, who I'm still surprised isn't 40 years old, but that's a different conversation for another podcast. And also, he's in a contract year, basically, right? Like his 4-year contract is up at the end of 2024. So we're trying to figure out, what do you think? Is he going to outperform his ADP? Is he going to finish better than QB 13?
5-year contract.
Was a 5-year contract. Anyways, it's the end is after this year. Um, so last year finished as QB 10. Kind of want to get your take on the additional pieces and where he's at right now. Do you think realistically being drafted as QB 13 in ADP is a good spot for Tua?
So, first of all, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I do think so. If we look at our standings last year, he finished ninth in. If I look at our league, he finished ninth in points for out of the QBs. And if I look at this year, I'm expecting him to go finish somewhere between 10 and 15. Because if we look at the last year, there were a lot of big QB names that were hurt, right? So if I look at Stroud, I'm expecting Stroud to finish higher than Tua. If we look at Cousins, if we look at Burrows, Stafford as well. So I think he'll finish somewhere within that realm. I don't think he's going to have as good a season as he had last year. I think everything fell in place perfectly for him last year. As for the team too, like towards the end of the season, they got some injuries, but beginning of the season, they were just rolling. If we look at his situation right now, so he lost a lot of weight. There's no No one seems to know exactly how much weight he lost. There's some reports saying he lost 10 to 15 pounds, but if you see pictures of him, he lost way more than 10 to 15 pounds. He looks like a twig. So that worries me. Like
Hmm.
chubby Tua worried me. They made him gain weight to make him be more solid, and it worked last year. He played 17 games, but skinny Tua scares me. So
I love
I
it.
honestly, as a Dolphins fan, as much as it sucks to say, I don't think he's going to finish the season. I don't think he'll play a full season. Um, so I mean, if he does, I'm expecting him to finish between 10 to 15.
Who's
It's a
the
very
backup right now?
very honest assessment.
Mike White.
Nice.
But there were rumors that there were a lot of rumors about Tannehill um, maybe taking White's place, but nothing came to fruition yet. I'd feel more comfortable with Tannehill, obviously, than Mike White, but
Nacc, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think he touched upon some good points where with mentioning the players that were injured last year. Like there's even an Anthony Richardson that can easily slide up the board. I know we've talked about him a little bit. Um, then there's and also Aaron Rodgers, who we didn't mention, who
hmm
has that top ten potential for fantasy points, especially with all the weapons he has at his disposal. He did mention a Kirk Cousins also, who's slated to go below him, who's also got more weapons, more potent offense to work with. And he was on like an MVP level season before he got hurt last year. We don't know how he's going to look, but then there was Kyler Murray. I think he didn't start the year last year, right? He was
No.
injured. He was injured
Yeah.
a bit too. Another running style quarterback that has the potential. So I think 13 is pretty fair. I don't really see like it's pretty good. I still think he's a top 15 QB in fantasy. He's we talk about weapons. He's got Waddle on one side. He's got Tyreek on one side. He's got the track team in the backfield. So eh, look, I don't have a problem with where he's being drafted right now. I don't. Does he have that top 10 potential with all those players said? Maybe not. Maybe he's outside of the top 10, and that's where he's being drafted. So I think it's perfectly rated.
Raj, what say you?
It's a bit tough. He didn't. He only had one 300-yard game, week 10 and on. It felt like a lot of his yardage was during like a handful of games, like 466 passing yards against the Chargers. Obviously, there was the big game against Denver where he had 4 TDs, and then there was Carolina, 3 TDs, and New England three. But then afterwards, it was a very inconsistent. So I'd be a bit weary even if he does finish in that realm of 1380 10 to 13 ranking. I'm a bit worried about the consistency with regards to Tua because the talent is there from his supporting cast perspective. Obviously, with all the running backs and the amazing pass catchers, like the talent is there. And they build an offense that is catered towards him, getting rid of the ball really quickly to really amazing athletes.
Yeah.
But there's a I think there's an inconsistent aspect with regards to Tua that is always worrisome. And I love what Guido pointed out in terms of the injury history. Like it's still a factor, right? And we're seeing a lot of QBs now, whether it's Mahomes or obviously some of the newer QBs, Richardson. A lot of QBs are getting bulkier because withstanding a 17 game season is very difficult, and being lean and slick, you're going to take a pounding. And having weight, we've seen what, like, literally Mahomes has said this. A lot of QBs have said this. We've seen Mahomes what he looks like without a t-shirt. Like even Josh Allen. They are big, thick guys
Full on
and
dad bod.
full
Full
on
on
yeah.
dad
dad bod.
bod, and that's
Yeah.
okay because they're getting beaten and bruised, and they're getting right back up. So I, I think Tua gets around that. I think that that's a fair ADP for him. I'd probably draft him around that area too, but I wouldn't be very comfortable about it, factoring in the consistency level of when he has his big games, and he tends to come up small in other areas.
So I actually had Tua last year, and the beginning of the season he killed it. He was absolutely a monster. And he did really really well. But the problem though is that towards the end of the season everything slowed down. Just the Miami offense in general kind of slowed down a little bit, and you really saw it with how it affected his play in general, right? Like as far as a quarterback far as like real football, how as far as that's concerned, I think he's a good quarterback. But from a fantasy perspective, he's much more on the low end QB2 for me. So for me, QB 13 in my ADP is a little bit too high. Because I had him last year, and last year towards the end, like he was putting up like QB2 numbers. He wasn't putting up QB1 numbers like in the beginning. And plus, you don't really have the rushing upside that you would normally have with those QBs that,
Yep.
we alluded to earlier on in the segment, right? He's not going to run. There's the injury history there. And whether he's light, the fact that he's lighter now also concerns me as well. And I like he's probably going to be good for 4,000 yards passing, which is phenomenal. But he's going to get you like what 100 yards rushing, maybe get the off rushing touchdown. Like I don't see QB 13 as an ADP for him living up to it. And you look at the guys that are going after him. I know we touched on a few of them, right? But Jaden Daniels, he has a much better upside. Trevor Lawrence, okay. Caleb Williams, I'll take a dart at Caleb Williams instead of taking Tua at the QB2 spot. Kirk Cousins, Stafford, Rogers. I mean, these are all guys that, like, in my opinion, the floor is higher, and so is the ceiling too. I'm fading a little bit on Tua. I really am. QB 13 might be a little bit too rich for my blood.
The rushing thing though, Fab. Like I'm looking at Stroud. He only had 39 carries and 167 yards. Like even Goff, who I guess Goff is on that ADP, but
I think Goff is a more consistent passer, though. I think Goff, you're going to be like you mentioned. He only had one 300-yard passing game.
no, he didn't just have one, but like in the second half, yeah.
Yeah, but like so, I feel like Goff is also operating a very good offense. I'm not going to knock the Miami offense at all. The offensive line for Detroit has already been established as being one of the better, if not the best, offensive lines. So that's going to keep him upright. So if you're talking about from a fantasy draft perspective, I'm much higher on Goff. Well, I'm higher on Goff than I am on Tua because I think you're going to get the full 17 game slate out of Goff. Whereas Tua, the injury concern is a concern. And as Guido mentioned just now, the fact that the guy is like he's the weight of like a few feathers right now, like yeah, I'm worried about that.
His
Yeah, and
offensive line didn't get much better either.
yeah,
Uh,
that's it. I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Yeah, the
they
offensive
lost
line is
Robert
not
Hunt, which
pretty.
was a big loss, right? They ended up signing Driscoll from the Eagles, which is okay, but I mean, they didn't really improve in that aspect, and it wasn't fantastic last year either. So
But he did manage to stay upright for the majority of the season. Like he didn't take as many sacks as he did the previous year, which I thought was a plus. So there is that is in his favor. So from a health standpoint, like I hope he doesn't get injured again. I hope he doesn't go through another concussion. I hope like that's just it's ridiculous. And those images were frightening in the season past, right? The guy had like 4 concussions in 2 games or whatever it was, right? And just
No,
trotting
no,
on a
no. It was his
corpse
back.
right
It
now.
was his back.
It was his bad.
that's what I don't that's what I don't understand either as a fan. Like they put a lot of emphasis on him putting on weight last year, and it paid dividends last year. He had his best season, and he played all the full slate of games. So I don't understand, and I mean I'm sure they know what they're doing, but like what changed, right? Like what made them decide like, oh, he has to go back to being tiny. So
I think
I don't get the
Guido, I think they're trying to get him to be a bit more mobile because
right.
Yeah,
that's
but
kind of
his running was never really his game,
it
right?
was not his game.
No, it was never.
He's a
No,
quick hitting
So I don't know
passer.
what the end game is here. Like making him more, I guess making him more mobile, fine.
That,
But he was never like
I
a.
I think that's his miss. That's what he's missing from being like right now. To me, he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, and that elusivity, that ability to like we see with C.J. Stroud and Jordan Love, obviously Patrick Mahomes, all those like Josh Allen, all those elite guys being able to make 3-4 guys miss and hit the downfield throw. That's exactly what Tua. That's why Tua is just a good quarterback because he
Mhm.
runs the offense to a T.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
not good at improvisation.
I think what's going to help maybe is if the contract is not settled in the offseason, which I don't think it. I don't. I think it should get done before the season. I'm assuming it will. They don't want also to have him play out without a security of having a quarterback next year. But if they do contract year, right? So maybe he has that in him to go try to go out and ball and put up numbers. But
I
That's a
just
good point. Sorry, Guido, go ahead.
No, sorry. I just find it's very telling too that there's at such an impasse on the contract negotiations. They're very hesitant, and as a fan, I'm hesitant to give him that big contract too because, like we said, he played well in those shootout games against those mediocre to not so good teams. But in the big games last year, in the final moments where we needed him the most, he fell flat on his face. Like Raj said, like when you need him on the spur of the moment to make something up or to cook something up, he struggles big time.
The Dallas game was like just that was a game they needed. Like it was
So
just
just
wasn't good enough.
so rapid fire because I think they're comping him to like what Trevor Lawrence got, which was like average annual value of 55 million a year. Are you giving
That's
that
what
to
he
Tua?
wants. That's what he wants. He wants to be
Right.
the highest paid, right? Like
So
that's,
are you
that's what he
giving that
wants.
to Tua, Guido?
No, you can't justify the highest paid. You can't. As a
I
fan,
think it
I
depends on
can't.
the guarantees. I think it depends on the guarantees. I think he
Yeah.
probably wants high guarantees, but he just that's probably what the impasse is. I feel is
That makes sense
the
considering the
guarantee, the
injury history and
guarantee.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
That makes
the
sense. Yeah.
guaranteed money. I feel like they're not. That's what they're not giving him a lot of. Like teams, like they don't care about that average annual salary. It's the actual money that they're giving up
Hmm.
to these players, and I think they're for sure. It's for sure lower than what some of these players are getting. Like, there's no way he's getting 100 million guaranteed. Like
No, for sure.
they're probably reluctant to give him that.
No, I agree 100%. Guido, final thoughts on Tua before we let you go?
I hope he's as successful as last year. They surrounded him even better this year, right? They added John Smith, they added Odell Beckham, so they gave him a few more weapons. But like I said, my gut instinct is that it won't end well with his new weight, and I'm bracing for the worst and mentally preparing for Tannehill if that ever works out, because I think it'd be a much better option than Mike White.
But you're also hoping that he gets his yellow belt in his karate class. Thank you very much, Guido. Thank you very much for jumping on. Really appreciate
My
you
agree.
Thanks,
taking the time and
guys.
being here.
Guido.
Yes.
Fins up. Fins up.
Thumbs up. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Awesome. That was great, guys. Thanks a lot, Guido. Thank you, Spiro. Thank you, Nick. Now, moving on to the last team of the AFC East, last and probably the least, because who's really a Bills fan? And the fact that like we're trying to get special guests on for this podcast right now, we couldn't find anyone for our Bills, for
I
the
think
Bills fan right
I
now.
had one, but it would have been too last minute.
Oh, okay. Well, this person can always come on next week if they want to shout out or have any comments about how we're going about this podcast. But we do love our Bills fans. But we have a special one here available to us every week because he's a co-host on the podcast, Mr. Anthony Nacarata over here, the resident Bills fan, the resident Josh Allen poster boy, and who could really blame him after all those fantasy points that he puts up for you last year and most likely this year again because you're drafting first and we all know. Anyways, we're not going to talk about Josh Allen though, as wonderful as he is. We are going to pick your brain a little bit about the wide receiver situation in Buffalo right now, and specific to the fact that there has been some changes in the wide receiver room over the offseason. Lost Stephon Diggs, lost Gabe Davis, that hole opened up about like 250 targets, 150 receiving yard, 150 receptions, almost 2,000 yards. I know the guy we're about to talk about is not going to pick up all those yards and all those receptions because they also added Curtis Samuel and some other pieces, But essentially, they are very excited about their rookie Keon Coleman, and I think there's reason for that excitement too. So right now, he's going as his ADP is 46 as a wide receiver, and considering the situation that he's in, because unlike other rookie wide receivers who might not be in as good of a spot, Coleman is expected to be the guy coming out of the gates, and he has Josh Allen, potential MVP, throwing to him. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain, Nacc. See, right now at ADP 46, how are you feeling about Keon Coleman in that offense? Are you buying? Are you selling? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm definitely buying. You mentioned a few things there. Josh Allen is his QB. For one, yes, I do love Josh Allen. I did have him last year. I did win the league with Josh Allen. Just if that wasn't clear before. Um, I know they had a guy, Khalil Shakir, also who came on strong end of the year, kind of even outperforming Diggs at times, but he's not your WR1 who's he's slotted in there right now. As you mentioned, they did add a Curtis Samuel, but he's more of like a Swiss Army knife, type guy. He's going to run a little bit. He's going to catch a little bit. Then there was murmurs with Chase Claypool on how he was doing well in camp. Again, I'm staying complete away from Chase Claypool, but they also added a Marquez Valdez Scantling, so kind of a journeyman guy. He's been there, done that in the league. And then they do have the two tight ends in Knox and Kincaid, who are gonna also catch passes. They'll probably have a lot of two tight end sets as well. But if you look at the list of people, um, where Coleman is going after. You have a Roma Dunze, who's not the main guy on his team. He's going to be the number three option. Another guy, Xavier Worthy, who we've mentioned a few times on this pod, and with who I have a bet with Raj about his his performance this year. So I really don't like him. There's a lad McConkey who does have a chance to succeed in. Um, with the Chargers, especially as in a number one role. But I'm still going with a guy like Keen Coleman. Just the way he is, the way the guy like the life he shine like right away in camp. Like everyone loves the guy over there. Josh Allen is apparently raving about this guy too. Again, you mentioned 200 targets or 250 targets and 2,000 yards. Like a big chunk has got to go to someone, and he can easily put up 1,000 yard season. I think as a wide receiver. It's guys, it's Josh Allen,
A
right?
thousand.
Yeah, I think close. I think he's gonna flirt with it. I think he's gonna flirt. Look, they're gonna have to throw the ball to someone, and this guy again, he's checking a lot of boxes right now. And like I said, Josh Allen loves him. When Josh Allen loves someone, he throws him the ball. So it's flirting. Like I'm not flirting with 1,000 yards. I think he does, man. Like who else are you giving these targets to? Where it's like, think about it, 2,000 yards to kind of go around, and like Kincaid, did catch enough last year. Like he had a really good rookie year, right?
I
Like
think it's going to
eight,
be a committee.
yeah, for sure, hundred
I think it's
percent.
going
There's
to be
going
a
to be a
committee.
committee there, but
Yeah.
there's a
Uh,
lot of yardage and a lot of targets that are.
his route running concerns me. Like the way he played at FSU, he's like a Kenny Galladay style. Like he's not a good route runner. He's big physical. Like he's gonna catch like crazy catch radius. But from a route running perspective, it concerns me a bit, to be honest. We you guys remember we had the episode for free agency. Like I think Curtis Samuel, because he has the familiarity with Joe Brady when they were in
Mhm.
Carolina. I think he's going to be the main guy there. I think he's going to be the WR1 there. He's had a thousand
Wow,
yard receipt. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
No, the
WR1.
WR1. Well,
Yeah,
he's even
WR1 there. Yeah, yeah. He's
yeah
gonna be the
he's even
guy.
He's
Yeah, yeah.
slated.
he's right now slated. He's right now slated
Well,
as a WR3 on the depth chart.
he's slated as but
Yeah, but that
like
chart's still like
depth
I'm not
charts.
looking at.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
he's
I'm
Well,
just looking at.
guys. He was in a lot of cases better than Jahan Dotson. And in a lot of games, Terry McLaurin last year, he's had two very solid seasons with
Eh,
mediocre. Wait, with
I'll give you Dotson. He's been disappointing, but
yes.
more
I'm not
games
saying
than
I'm
McLaurin.
not saying he's better than I'm saying there was games where he was the better wide receiver than Curtis Samuel. And the way you mentioned him, like yes, he's a bit of a gadgety player. He comes on end arounds, use him in rushing, but he's a good route runner. And he's the type of guy similar to like a Deontay Johnson, where he gets open. He's going to catch a lot of those like shorter passes in the intermediate, take them for some run after catch. I think I think we're in a situation where we're getting really really excited about the rookie wide receiver again. And I get it was a good wide receiver draft. He was a early second round guy. I like his enthusiasm. I think he's going to be a good ball winner. But personally, his route running concerns me, and I think we're going to see like, yeah, look, he has a good mini camp. Let's see how he fares in training camp. Ultimately, that wide receiver room, like again, it's going to be a committee. So I think game on game, you're not going to really know who to rely on necessarily.
I think Keon Coleman will give weekly wide receiver three upside on a regular basis. I think he's in a very good situation and a very good spot to succeed. I think they drafted him wanting him to succeed right out of the gates, and I think that's a huge plus. You're using a first round pick on a wide receiver, right? Like you can't forget about that, and they understand what their wide receiver room looks like and what they need it to be. And I think Keon Coleman fits in that wide receiver room very well, and I think he will be the guy coming out of the gates. I don't disagree that Curtis Samuel is going to take away targets and all that stuff. He's a very good wide receiver, and I think he complements that room very well. But if I had to draft a wide receiver out of the Bills wide receiver room, I'm drafting Keon Coleman. If I take him this year and he's my wide receiver four on my team, I'm very excited about that because the guy's ceiling, in my opinion, is like very high. And we always talk about like situational stats. And I know, Raj, you did touch on a very good point that I mentioned about this in the last podcast too. We're all getting very rookie wide receiver excited. Like I'm not, Nacc, you mentioned Adunze. I'm not that excited about Adunze just because of the situation that he's in, because of who's throwing to him, the wide receiver room that exists out there. You take away a lot of those factors, you change all of them, and you have what Keon Coleman is in right now. And that's why it's also easy to be excited about Malik Neighbors. I know, yeah, Daniel Jones, he sucks. But like he is the only guy in that wide receiver room that's going to command all the targets. So you talk about how ability, sure, talent, sure, opportunity. The guy has the opportunity. The ceiling is very high for Keon Coleman.
Like
Like Nack said, flirting with 1,000 yards. I think that's super realistic. I think that's super realistic.
I just want to be mindful. The ability wise, it's like mid tier ability compared. Like I think Leggett, or even an AD Mitchell could have a better season than him because they're already better, more refined wide receiver guys. The aspect of being a
Leggett, yes. I don't
refined
see
wide
us
I,
receiver
AD
is
I
Mitchell.
agree. I
being a
agree.
refined wide receiver is
It's
important. Like you
more.
have
You're
to be able
right.
to run routes. Like you have to.
You're right.
He's also a
Yes.
4.7. Like I know the 40-yard dash isn't the most important thing,
No,
but
you're
like
But I'm saying
big
it comes with
points.
opportunity. When we're talking about like opportunity and what it kind like ADP style here, like there's a lot of guys that are going before him where like I'll take him before, like
McConkey too.
better
McConkey,
quarterback. Like, yeah, man, I
tough
think they're gonna
one.
run. Like the
Yeah.
Chargers are gonna run there, man. Like
Yeah.
they're really like I think if I had to put money on the table now, who has a better chance of getting 1,000 yards? I'm going Coleman before McConkey.
Can we change our bet? I like that bet instead of the
That's a
worthy.
nice bet. I
Well,
like
we
That's
that
a
could take
bet.
it.
nice
We
bet.
could we could take another one, but I'm still taking that worthy bet
Let's
from you.
take
That's
an.
for sure.
Let's talk offline. But I like.
Roger's trying to renege on the worthy bet. I don't blame you. I would too. It's a bad bet.
But
It's a bad bet.
back to your point where you said Curtis Samuel had some games that he outperformed his WR1. Like those games are going to happen to any WR1, right? Like CD Lamb, like Jefferson, like there were games where Addison outperformed Jefferson, right? Like they're not always going to outperform their WR2 on the team, right? Like those games happen where that WR1 is just can't get open or he's just
Yeah.
not, like there's games where it's gonna happen. Like, am I saying Coleman is gonna be the guy every week in and week out every single
Right.
week? No
Right.
chance. Like
Right. 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 Right.
there's a lot of people there and it's gonna change. But
So his last 2 years in Carolina, 105 targets in 2019, 97 in 2020. The 2020 season, 77 catches, 851 yards, 3 TDs, 41 rushes for 200 yards. So like that's not far from WR3 territory. And again, it is the Joe Brady factor that I really really like. Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator in Carolina back then. Now he's the offensive coordinator in Buffalo.
yeah,
So
I just
I
don't
think the
see him
family.
as a I just don't see Curtis Samuel as a WR1.
I know because he's a small diminutive like wide receiver. He's like 5'11", like 200 pounds. Like I get it, but I think the familiarity aspect that's what pushes it for me. But I think it's a fair point on like I like Coleman. I think the vibes are just like top tier vibes in terms of
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great sound bites on
great
ESPN.
soundbite. And I think to your point, it's probably going to be a breath of fresh air in terms of all the negativity with Diggs that they had. Like it must have been so
Yeah, true.
draining.
That's a very good point.
Just the like moodiness, like contract this. Am I getting the ball that? Who should get more credit in terms of whose success between Diggs and Allen and so on and so forth. So I think it's a breath of fresh air
I
to
think a
have
lot of
Coleman.
people are fading the Bills, and to a certain extent, rightfully so. But it's a quarterback driven league, man, and you
Yeah.
have Josh Allen there. So like I don't think you could take them completely out of the equation.
No.
No,
Wild. Crazy to
no, no,
fade
no, no,
them.
no, 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 no. I still think they have a very listen. I think they have a very good shot of winning the division. The only thing, in my opinion, are the New York Jets. That's the only ace in the hole. Rodgers has a full year. He plays a full 17 games. Spiro talked about it before. Their defense is legit. Their defense is really, really, really
Yeah,
good,
they do have a good
and they
defense.
have great offensive weapons to complement Aaron Rodgers, and they really shored up the offensive line as well. So I think it's my opinion, it's the Jets and the Bills that would be fighting for the number one spot in that
Yeah,
division.
I think for right now, I think it's still the Bills division with
Jets and
with
Bills.
with the Jets like the opportunity to
Listen,
pounce.
my biggest thing is I hope everyone stays healthy. That way, it's an actually competitive division this year.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
everyone was super high on Aaron Rodgers and the
Especially
Jets
Josh
last
Allen.
year. Yeah, sure. Depends on who's drafting him. But yeah, but no, but it's that's one thing you want the most because the division fell flat on its face. I find like after the first play in the Jets game,
Pretty
So hopefully,
demoralizing.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was, and I feel for Jets fans in that sense. But whatever. The second team in New York City. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in and tuning in this week. Big thank you for our guests for jumping on. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Spiro. Thank you, Guido. Thanks, Nacc. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules. Really enjoyed having this, the super fan perspective tied into fantasy and seeing if they had those goggles on and making really honest decisions. And in some cases, probably not, but that's what's fun about it. So thank you, everyone, for listening in and tuning in. Please listen and download. Please share and follow. Please comment and like. Uh, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. You can find us everywhere. So what are you doing? Download. Let's go, guys. Let's go. Let's get ready for week 4. Let's get ready for episode 14 next week, huh? For the rest of us over here at the Bush League Huddle podcast, I'm Fabio. That's Roger. That's Nacc. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. Take care. Peace.
Goodbye.
Happy Canada Day.
Forgot about that.
Bye.
Bye.